Guys, I'm here with Rick Remender talking Uncanny Avengers and Captain America. Let's jump into it.
Let's jump into it.
Come on, let's jump in. That's the only way to do it. You got to jump in.
Just get in the business end of this thing.
Yeah, I know, no pleasure. That's all over with. So, Uncanny Avengers, dealing with a lot of. It's pretty serious. It's a pretty serious tone book.
Serious.
Combining the Avengers with the X-Men, dealing with a lot of sort of mutant hate. Is that going to be the overall direction for the book?
Well, no. I mean, it's one aspect of it, and it was something where I was putting together my villains, and it seemed to me that I had a really nice juxtaposition between somebody who, the way we've reimagined the Red Skull, as somebody who's trying to rally people to his cause of getting rid of the mutants, which is really just the Red Skull trying to build himself an army and do his own thing.
Yeah.
His motivations always have to be as sort of sort of evil and maniacal, and there can't be any gray. Anytime Red Skull does something, it has to be so evil that the evilness on the outside is even more evil when you get to the real motive. And then the other side of that, you have the Apocalypse twins, who might want to do some harm to humanity in order to save the mutants. And those two things being the yin and the yang of sort of, the X-Men and the Avengers villains. You've got a classic Avengers villain in Red Skull. You got a classic X-Men villain in Apocalypse, and now the Apocalypse twins. Yeah. And so we will be definitely exploring quite a bit of how those two worlds and what their ideology is and what they want affect the mutant population, and how our team deal with it while trying to represent the dreams of Charles Xavier and stay together as a unit. And I think the fun there is that everybody has a different idea on how that works, and I don't think any of them exactly see it the same way, which is sort of the fun of taking somebody like Charles's ideology. Everybody will extrapolate their own version of it, and so then you got a team trying to make this work, but none of them can quite find the same path to get to that, and that's going to obviously be, I think, unity, and their struggle to hold that together and find the road is going to be a lot of what the series is built around.
Awesome. And why does a guy like Thor care about Xavier's dreams so much?
Well, I think that we established that in the first story. One of the things that happened in the first story is we see Thor. Red Skull uses avalanche as a bomb, and he brings down a building in the middle of the city, and there's a large body count. A lot of civilians are killed. And Thor, during the cleanup on this, says, I've stood by idly for too long. We've ignored the size and the scope of the problem for too long. And he gets invested, he's emotionally invested, and that was why I had him in the wreckage, and why I spent that time showing that, was to get to the heart of, he starts to see this is getting out of control, and we need to take a step towards preemptively and proactively doing something to solve this. And you also see at the end of the fourth issue, Logan, his arc in the first 4 issues starts with a eulogy for Charles, in which he says, we failed. Charles died and we failed, and there's no undoing that. And then by the end of the 4th issue, Thor comes in and gives him a newspaper that shows this new team that is accidentally come together, and it says, Xavier dead, dream lives on. And here are these humans and mutants and X-Men and Avengers together, who having just taken down Red Skull and saved the city. And Thor tells him, he would have been proud of you. You're doing a good job, and this time you won't be alone. And that's supposed to be like the gauntlet's down and Thor's in at that point. So that's why.
That's awesome. There's a little bit of a controversy over use of the term M-word in the book that Havoc says. Could you have possibly seen that coming, and does that speak more to the character of Havoc in the new world?
Obviously, I think that I don't write the mutants as a metaphor, as a real-world metaphor for religion or race.
Yeah.
I use them as a type of superhero in a fictitious universe that don't and Havoc's point of view seemed to be natural to me, in that it puts him in direct conflict with Scott.
Right.
So that Scott sees the mutants needing to stick together and make a last stand on Mutant Island. Alex sees more of a let's not distinguish ourselves from our fellow man. Let's all get along and work in the same area.
Right.
And so it came about as a direct sort of opposition to that. But I guess I never saw it coming, because I never in my head extrapolated from it, nor did I see it as real world metaphor.
Commentary.
And a lot of people do. And it's interesting, the people who are upset everybody had a different reason because of their own version of the metaphor, which I think speaks to the strength of the mutant metaphor more than anything. Which is that we, as a punker kid growing up, my parents moved me to a hillbilly town in southern Arizona where I was the freak and I was picked on and had a rough time, and the X-Men were like, that was my home. You can go to the mansion and hang out with the other freaks, and their backs are up against the wall and they don't take any shit. And I think that everybody identifies with it, and I think that speaks to the strength of the mutants and why people identify. But it had never occurred to any of us because we're not writing it as if it's a direct metaphor for sexual orientation or color. It's just they're the mutants.
Just the story.
And it's in a fictitious universe. So while I respected the commentary later when I read some of it, there was some reaction to it at the beginning that was a little less than productive. And my reaction to that was a little less than productive. But by the end of it, and a couple of days, went by, and I realized that there were some actual thoughtful people, not just name callers on Twitter. And I took it down and apologized and said, oh, I misunderstood. You guys actually have a point. You want to discuss this. All I had seen was a lot of people on Twitter shooting at me some nasty stuff one night.
And it's great that you did that because I think it speaks to what, I am thinking about this as well, obviously. And that makes everyone sort of cool off.
Yeah, well, and once, an open dialogue about that stuff is fine. And all I had to do was explain, oh, that's cool. That's your version of the metaphor. And my version is totally different. So extrapolating from that this is something that is a commentary on culture or religion or ethnicity, it's not. It's entirely like, hey, Spider-Man and Reed Richards are superheroes too. They got bitten or bombarded. Mine were born into me. And I think that at this point, he sees, and this is Alex Summers' point of view, mutant is too closely associated with guys like Magneto and, having almost destroyed New York. And he thinks that they're not going to be able to bridge the gap until they get away with the labels. And I think that, as long as people know that that's a fictitious character's point of view, and if they like it or don't like it, that's great. That's why it's there, is to give him a perspective that you can like or not like, and it helps move the character forward.
Great. Uncanny Avengers tie-in with Age of Ultron. I feel like you're one of the few writers who are using the crossover to really push your story. How do you sort of adjust to that? How did you generate that idea?
Tom Brevoort, my editor, had the kernel of idea. We needed some space in the series proper to help build up the Apocalypse twins and their involvement with Kang. And it's a regular monthly, and so there's never really that extra issue to do that. And he goes, this would be a really wonderful opportunity to establish them when they were younger with Kang and tell a story. And Jerry Duggan, who's one of the co-writers on Deadpool right now, he had been helping me cook up a lot of the things. We talk a lot and sort of brainstorm. And so I said, I'm pretty booked. Do you want to come in and help me figure this out? And so we spent a day and we beat it up and we figured out how could we reflect this universe and show another side of Havoc? How can we show another side of Rogue, another side of Captain America, while also developing the Apocalypse twins and their relationship with Kang, while also touching on the Age of Ultron and showing something interesting there that ties into the overall story. So I treated it as if it was just another issue of Uncanny Avengers, but the story revolving around the Apocalypse twins as they're being raised by Kang, being taken to an alternate universe to do some hunting. So it's, Dangerous Games style. They're out to hunt, Captain America, and so he's taking them to these alt universes to hunt. And that got me excited.
That's great. It's such a smart way to use it.